该请你提醒我们。好，现在都有了嘛哈。
Okay, so let's look inside the cycles.
让我们先开始进入这个循环里面来看啊。
The first cycle is the seven seals, beginning with chapter 5, verse 1.
第一个循环是7个印，从第5章第1节开始。
I begin with chapter 5 rather than chapter 6 because chapter 5:1 introduces the sealed scroll.
那么不是从第6章，是从第5章开始，因为第5章就开始讲的这个印啊，这7个印的这个书卷。
And the pattern is that in chapter 5 you introduce the source for the judgments, the lamb and the sealed book.
那这个第5章是讲的这个审判的这个来源，是因为这个羔羊和展开这个书卷的这个特征。
Then chapter 6 consists of 6 judgments, one after the other.
那第6章开始讲到这个6个审判，一个连接一个来。
And chapter 7 is we have a word in English, interlude. It's a pause.
第7章呢，我们英文叫做间奏哈，中间暂停一下，间奏哈。
And then finally, the seventh seal in chapter 8, verse 1.
然后呢，就第7个印和这个最后的审判啊，第8章第1节。
I've put in red the judgments they're primarily negative in character.
我用红色表明这个审判是负面的。
But in between, in chapter 7 is a promise for the church.
那in chapter 6
in chapter 7,
在第7章里面我们看到这个有教会给教会的应许啊，这个间奏啊。
So this structure is actually continuing to underline the black and white contrasts between good and evil.
所以这样子的架构就是黑白这个分明的这个表明这个善恶的区分哈。
And I put the seventh one with a double B because it's the climactic one.
那这边有两个 B 重复，这边就是这个高峰的，所以高潮，所以就加倍的重复哈，加倍的强调。
So now look at the trumpet sequence. That's chapter 8, verse 2 through the end of 11.
那我们看到第2个循环7号吹响，第8章到第11章哈。
And first you introduce the participants, both the angels, the 7 angels and 7 trumpets.
首先这里讲到7号有7个天使哈。
And they are the immediate source for these judgments.
他们是这些审判的立即的这个来源哈。
And then you've got 6 judgments, one after the other.
然后你也接着有6个审判接连而来。
And then you have an interlude, a pause.
然后你有这个间奏哈，这个暂停啊。
Almost 2 whole chapters of Revelation.
几乎是用了2章的篇幅。
And there are interpretive disputes, but I believe this is a positive promise for the church.
那当然解经上有一些争论，但是这个我相信是讲到这个正面的这个给教会的安慰和应许啊。
And then the 7th and final judgment at the end of chapter 11.
然后有第7个号和最后的这个审判，第1至11章结束了。
Now what you see then is there's a common structural pattern to cycle 1 and cycle 2.
所以看到第一循环跟第2循环基本上的形式是这个一样的这个形式。
And having seen that pattern, I ask myself, does the same pattern occur in the 3rd cycle?
看到这个重复出现的这个形式，那我要问的是第3循环是不是有同样的这个形式呢？
Now the 3rd cycle is challenging because there's no numbering.
那第3个循环是具有挑战性的，它没有这个次序的数目。
But the first thing you look for is the principal characters that set in motion the action.
你看到是这些代表的人物，他们的动作等等，你可以看到。
And in this case, it's the woman and the dragon. It's simultaneously the good and the evil.
在这里有这个女人和这个大龙是这个善和恶这样的区分哈。
And then there are 6 accounts of symbolic characters and their actions.
然后有6个记载这个具有代表性的这个人物特色，这样的他们动作行动。
There is a history of the dragon. He's thrown out of heaven.
对，有这个讲到这个大龙的历史，他从天上被摔下来。
Then a history of the woman. She flees from the dragon.
然后还讲到这个女人的历史，她逃避大龙。
And then a history of the beast.
然后有这个兽的历史。
And then a history of the false prophet.
然后有这个假先知的历史。
And then there's the 144,000 who are the Lamb's followers.
然后有144000人是跟随羔羊的。
And in 14:6 and following, 3 angelic proclaimers.
第14章第7节有3个使者说话。
The 3 obviously do belong together.
那这3个是很明显他们在一起的。
And now that's 6 accounts.
那就是有6段记载。
And then after that, there's an interlude. There's a pause.
然后又有个间奏，有个暂停。
And it is more promise in its tone.
那他这个讲的话的这个语调是应许。
Let's read it together. You can see how different it is from the surroundings.
我们来一起来念，你看它跟前面上下文这个不同所在。第14章12到13节哈，12到13行，圣徒的忍耐就在此，他们是守神诫命和耶稣真道的。我听见从天上有声音说：“你要写下，从今以后在主里面而死的人有福了。”圣灵说：“他们是的，是他们习了自己的劳苦，做工的果效也随着他们。”
And you can see this is really not a history of one of the characters, but it's promise for the people of God.
很明显，这不是这些人物的历史，而是给神子民的应许。
And finally, there is a 7th and final judgment with the Son of Man as harvester.
所以最后呢，是第7段记载讲到最后的审判。
So I think that actually looking for this structure helped me in being reassured, yeah, there are 7 histories here.
所以帮助我的确看到实在有这个形式，有7个历史7个历史在这里。
Now, the common pattern is what you see on the slide here.
所以你看到这个荧幕上有这个基本的共同的形式是什么呢？
An opening scene that introduces the characters, often the source of the judgments.
对吧？这个开始的这个起幕就是说到哪一些人物以及他们是审判的来源。
Then 6 judgments, one after another.
然后有6个审判连接一个接一个来。
And then a interlude or pause with a promise to the people of God.
然后有这个所谓间奏，有这个暂停，讲到对神子民的应许。
And then the 7th.
最后第7个审判。
Now, that pattern, which is mostly going back and forth between good and evil, is also there at a larger scale.
那前后都论到这个善恶的这个对照区分其实它是在整个大的整体更清楚来看。
So I think this pattern is there in the cycles, within each cycle.
就在每一个这个7个循环里面，它都有这样子基本的形式。
But it's also there when you take all the cycles together.
当你把所有的7个循环合在一起看的时候，也一样有这个形式出现。
So here's the way I see it.
这是我所看到的。
Here's a gigantic sized pattern that goes from chapter 4 all the way through the 7th cycle.
巨大的这个形式，这个对比的形式呢，你看从这边所排列出来的。
It begins with this opening scene of God on his throne. That's A.
A 是讲到这个上帝在他的宝座上开始这个讲到的。
Then there are 6 cycles of judgment, each of which leads to the second coming.
然后这6个关于审判的循环，每个都带到最后审判，所以第二次再来。
And each cycle has this back and forth between the A and B parts.
那每一个循环都有这样子形式 A、B 这样子对比的中间的这个暂停的这样的关系。
And then there is a interlude or pause here.
中间这里也有这个所谓中间暂停是
And that's
安慰应
the
许。
famous millennial passage, which is positive in character,
对，特别是所谓论到千禧年是的确带来安慰，不是吗？
at least predominantly positive.
这个是带来这个正面的，从文本上来看。
And then the final judgment of the great white throne.
最后第7个审判是白色大宝座的审判了。
And within the millennial passage, you can see the same pattern.
在这个千禧年这20章的里面呢，也有同样的这个形式。
The angel who serves as the introductory figure.
这个天使是带来启动这个开始起始这个角色。
A preliminary judgment against Satan in chapter 20, verses 2 to 3.
20章2到3节先说到这个在前面的对撒旦的审判，
Promise for the saints, that's the 1,000-year reign.
然后讲到这个1000年的这个与耶稣同作王的这个应许给圣徒的。
And then final judgment against Satan in chapter 20, verse 7.
20章7到10节最后讲到对撒旦最后的审判了。
And you can do the same in the great white throne judgment.
你也可以用白色大宝座的审判来看到同样的形式。
And at an even larger scale, you have the same pattern.
那在这个整本书整个更大的这一个来看的话呢，也是有这样的形
But
式。
this time, the A is the negative judgment and the B is the promise.
这时候呢，对调一下，这个 A 是所谓这个负面的审判，那个 B 是应许。
So what you're looking at is patterns within patterns.
所以看到就是形式里面有形式。
The largest pattern that we just saw, and then within it, the 7 cycles of judgment.
所以我们看到这个大的这个形式里面有审判，然后在7个循环里有审判。
And then each of these boxes has the AB pattern in it.
每一个这个标号1、2、3属这个盒子里面还是有这些形式。
We're still not through
我们还
because
没有讲完了。
you can look at the book of Revelation from still another perspective.
那你还是可以从另外一个观点来看启示录啊。
Namely, look at the symbolic characters and what happens to them.
那就是看这个具有代表性的这些人物，他们发生什么事情。
So we already saw this. It's called a chiasm. You know the word. We already saw this pattern of the symbolic characters.
我已经说到这些有交叉对称的特征，特别是这些具有代表性的人物啊。
And basically, there's a dramatic movement in the book of Revelation.
基本上这是有一个这个就非常的强烈，像戏剧化这样的表达的这种前进的这样进行的启示。
The characters come on and are described one by one.
那这些角色呢，一个一个的介绍进来了，连续下来一接一接下去。
And then their destiny is given in the reverse order.
他们的命运结果是按照这个相反的这个次序来表明。
I've given again in white and red to show the contrast between good and evil.
我同样用这个白色跟红对照，一个是善，一个是恶的这样对照。
And then I also used the themes of those symbolic characters and extended it into an outline of the whole book.
我也用这些代表性的这些角色呢，来作为整个全书的大纲来看。
That's 3.7a.
那在3.7a 那里，
And I guess B as well, yeah.
3.7b 也是如此连续的。
3.7c gives you still another chiasm.
3.7c 呢，给你另外一个交叉对称。
This is based on themes rather than the symbolic characters.
这里是主要是用这个主题来，而不是用这个代表性的角色。
Now, do you really believe that that's a real chiasm?
你相信这是一个这个真正的这一个所谓交叉对称体吗？
The trouble is, if people try hard enough, they can find chiasms anywhere.
如果人们努力去找的话，你可以在任何地方圣经都看到有这个交叉对称体。
So you could take a book off the shelf, open any page, and you could with enough cleverness you could find a chiasm.
所以如果任何一本书拿它来找到中间有一页，那如果你够聪明的话，去仔细分析延伸的话，你都可以总是找出这个交叉对称的。
And there are some biblical scholars that they go too far.
有一些圣经学者是走得太过头了。
And they don't realize you can find chiasms where they don't actually exist.
他们没有明白，是你去找到一些交叉对称，事实上是不存在的。
So is this just an invention of my mind, or does it actually exist?
那这样子交叉对称体排列启示录的话，是真的是实情如，还是只是我的想象呢
？Something like it was over 30 years ago. I was asked for the first time to teach on the book of Revelation.
30年前，我第一次被邀请教启示录这门课。
And I happened to spend the summer before I was to do it. I spent in Oklahoma where there was no theological library.
那在那个之前的暑假呢，我在美国奥克拉荷马州在那个地方，但是那边没有这个神学图书馆。
So I had my Greek New Testament and I had a concordance and that was it.
那我只有我的希腊文圣经和我的这个经文汇编，就这样只有这个。
But I decided that's okay because I really need to interact myself with this book first.
我想那时候这样想说是可以的，因为我应该自己好好仔细读这个，不要看其他参考书。
But I remembered I had seen Meredith Kline work out 2 chiasms on the book of Revelation.
那我记得这个 Kline 的学者，他已经把启示录里面做了2个交叉对称的图出来了。
And they were in my notes in Philadelphia.
他是在我的笔记里面放在美国费城。
So I said, I'm going to see whether there are chiasms that I can discover.
那既然不在我手边，我就想我看我自己能不能找到有这个交叉对称体。
And then I will go back to Philadelphia and pull out my notes.
然后我弄完之后回到费城，把我以前的笔记拿出来对看。
And if Kline's chiasms don't agree with mine, then probably we're both wrong.
如果这个他的和我的不一样的话呢，那大概我们2个都错了。
But if they agree, it probably means that there really is something there in the text.
假如我们2个看英雄所见略同的话，那大概是真的是经文里本身有这个。
Well, I went back and they agreed.
我回去发现2个是一样的。
So I really think this does work.
所以我想这个是行得通的。
And it's a little less difficult than you might think.
这是可能比你想象更难一点哈。
Because the F part here, many people, interpreters have recognized that there are thematic similarities between these two.
在 F 项目你看的7个号跟7个碗的，在这个形式上这个主题上来说是相似的。
And you can see that these are negative judgments, and this theme of the picture of the redeemed is positive.
所以 F 是你看的是负面的审判，但这个 G 就是讲到蒙救赎子，
So
是正面的。
starting from there, you can begin to work out other parallels.
所以从这里开始，你可以发现这样对称的关系了。
And goes like this diagram.
所以就像这个图上所表明的。
All right, and then there's 2 kinds of deception, and in the center of a chiasm is often something very important.
那在这个交叉对称体的中间呢，是最重要的。
In the center of this chiasm is the beast, who is one of the principal opponent figures.
那在这个最中间是讲的这个兽，它是一个主要的这个代表性的角色，这个兽啊。
And then from there, you can go to see that there's this going back and forth between negative judgment and positive view of the victors.
从这里你可以看到，就是所谓这个正反对照，善和恶的这个对照，看到这些主要的。
So I wonder whether that larger pattern didn't influence the more detailed chiasm that I just showed you.
所以我在想，这个大的这个架构是不是影响我给你的细节里面这些的这个所谓交叉对称的？
There are still other thematic connections in Revelation.
但其实还有其他这种主题式的关联的架构。
I mentioned already the parallels between the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls.
我已经提到7号吹响和7个碗之间的那个平行。
There are songs of praise that come up sprinkled through the book.
在整卷书里面不断的各书都有出现这个敬拜的这个赞美的诗歌。
There are contrasts between the 7 messages to the 7 churches at the beginning and the New Jerusalem at the end.
而且在书信开始有这个7封书信给7个亚细亚教会，对照最后新耶路撒冷。
It's the church in conflict and in struggle versus the church in victory.
那这是前面讲的这个教会在征战中，那么最后讲教会在这个完全得胜的时候。
And there are repeated appearances of these symbolic characters, especially the beast and Babylon.
那特别里面重复出现这些具有代表性的这些角色，特别是兽啦、大巴比伦啊。
And there are groups of 7s.
那它也充满了这个有7的这个分类啊。
Heptad in English is a group of 7s.
这个字 heptad 就讲7的分成7号。
So look, for instance, at the trumpets and the bowls.
举例来说，看这个吹号和这个碗哈。
The first 4 trumpets affect the dry land, the sea, the fresh water, and the heavenly bodies.
前面的4个号呢，影响到这个所谓干地啦、海啦，还有这个水啊，还有天上的这个星体啊。
And the bowls, it's similar.
那这个7个碗也，这前面4个也是类似的。
And the amount is increased.
我们看到这个内容呢，是量增加了哈。
And the last 5, there's a less obvious parallels, but they're still there.
然后呢，剩下后面的这3个对照的话，你看基本上也是有平行对称的。
And here are the groups of 7.
所以我们看这七个方面的分类。
Although the 7 last things is more doubtful.
那讲到最后7件末后的事件呢，比较多一些讨论。
Here are the 7 last things.
我们看一下7个末后事件。
Some of which are negative and some positive.
有些是负面，有些是正面的。
But you make it 7 because if there are only 6, then you cut one of them in 2.
那你把它变成7，是因为如果原来6个的话，就把一个切成2，就变成7了。
And if there are 8, then you combine 2 of them.
那如果8的话，你把2个合在就变7了。
Yeah, so you can make it come out.
所以你可以把它这样对照可以，这样还是可以弄自己。
So you need to, again, this is this issue of are you seeing something that isn't there?
所以这是问题，还是要问，到底你去看到是其实本来没有，是你自己想出来的。
But if I look for 7 last things, this would be my list.
所以我要找7个末后事件，那这是我的单子这样列出来的。
And here's the 2 cities, church militant, that is church on earth, and church victorious.
所以讲到这个双城记哈，有这个在地上呢是征战中的教会，那在天上是得胜的教会。
And that actually functions as part of the contrast between the prostitute as a false church and the triumphant church of Revelation 19 and onward.
这个对照就是看到这个大淫妇和这个假教会和对照这个真教会天上耶路撒冷。
Okay, one more thing.
再还有一件事，我们看。
You're probably getting tired of outlines at this point.
我想你对这个大纲已经感到有点累了哈。
But I think all of these outlines are valid.
但我认为这些大纲都非常有价值。
This book is an amazing book.
这个卷书实在太奇妙了。
And it's I don't know whether you know about the Bach and his music, but it's very tightly structured, multiple structures.
这就像那个巴哈的音乐一样，里面非常的丰富的内涵，里面很丰富的内涵哈。
And this is that kind of book.
这个其实就像那样的丰富的内容的书了。
So, what about the chronology of the book of Revelation?
那关于这个启示录这个时间表是怎么样的？时间次序哈。
The fluidity of these images suggests the possibility of multiple fulfillments.
所用的这个语言和这个图画是如此的具有这个弹性呢，看来是可以多方面多次的实现。
There are disputes about the book of Revelation precisely for that reason.
那也就是因为这个原因，所以这是启示录有这么多不同看法争论的原因。
Does the second coming language in the book refer to the second coming? I believe yes.
那么问题是，这个描述到这些再来的这些用词，是不是真的就是指第二次再来？答案是当然是的。
Not to ignore earlier judgments as leading up to it, but yes, and the second coming is included.
但是不要忽略这个在第二次再来之前呢，在历史中有很多次的这个讲到这些应验的，那这两个不要分开啊。
And that means that these 7 cycles recapitulate. They go back over the same chronological time period.
就换句话说，7个循环各自都是重复的循环，讲的这个时间来说都是重复这个同样的这个过程是循环。
Not everybody accepts that.
虽然不是每个人都完全同意我这样
There
讲
are a good many people who try to make it purely a chronological development.
有不少人想要把启示录这个分割成是按照时间直线进行，就是一段一段一段的时间先后次序的。有些人是想这样做的。
But there's nothing that says if God inspires a book that it has to be, the literary order has to be the same as the chronological order.
在神所圣灵感动之下的这个圣经这卷书里面，没有说非得要照着这个排列时间次序来读，没有这样讲啊。
But now if these cycles go back, they recapitulate, still the question remains, how in detail are they related to one another?
那这7个循环我们是重复讲同样的是在不断的循环的话，那还是要了解一下这事件之间彼此的关系是什么。
William Hendrickson wrote at an earlier point a commentary on Revelation. It's actually a good commentary.
那这个Hendrickson 写了一本启示注释书，就这本是中文翻译啊。
And he includes this kind of diagram to explain it.
那他也用了这样这个图表来说明啊。
So it's both cycling back, but it's also progressive, right? It's getting more intensely toward the second coming.
所以这7个循环呢，虽然重复同样这个，但是它都是越来越密，最后指向都是耶稣基督的这个再来啊。所以它是讲同样的事在循环，但是它的每一个循环比每个更加去这个强调去接近耶稣基督再来，越来越强调的强度越来越强。
And I think that's helpful.
我想这个图是有帮助的。
But I prefer to do it like this.
但我的图表画的是这样的，我喜欢的是这样的。
That all of them go right up to the second coming.
每一个都是直接引到耶稣基督的再来。
But the later ones are more intense in focusing on the second coming.
那但是后面的循环呢，是更加直接这个聚焦在耶稣再来这个紧密的前后。
Now there's still another approach.
那当然还有别的进入方法了。
I'm going to call it the nesting approach.
那我要说就是这个筑巢的这个进入哈。
That's just my label, but it's to describe what you will see.
那这个我这样用来描述这个什么意思？你可以看
That
到
one cycle is within the nest of another one.
也就是说，每一个循环是这个循环里面呢，再有一个循环在它窝巢建巢在它这个里面啊。
And you will see this view presented in some commentaries.
那你会看到有些注释书是这样表达的。
It says the 7 seals lead up to the second coming.
但是说到这7个印是这讲到引向耶稣再来哈。
And it also says the 7 trumpets expand on the 7th seal.
这也从说到在这个第7印里面呢，里面在这个筑巢在展开的里面有7个号。
So in time, they're actually all included in the time of the 7th seal.
换句话说，这7个吹号都是包含在这个第7印里面来讲，在里面筑巢。
And similarly, the 7 bowls are all included in the 7th trumpet.
同样的，7个碗也都同时被包含在那第7号吹响里面。
So this is actually a form of recapitulation.
也是同时是一种这种所谓重复循环出现的这种架构啊。
The distinctive thing about it is that it really thinks the second one is really compressed in relationship to the first.
那所以第二个就是我们刚才在原来的第1个里面第7个里面，现在把它 压缩放在第一个的这个第7号里面，这个意思。
And by the time you get here, it's still more compressed. You can hardly see it.
所以你到这个时候，它这个压缩的更紧了，这时候几乎你快看不见了，到这边看不见了。
But it does not work.
但是这样讲法呢，行不通。
Because the symbolic histories start with the incarnation.
但是这个记号的历史呢，是开始是用道成肉身开始的。
The woman gives birth to a man child who is to rule over the nations.
这个妇人生了男孩，要统治万国的啊。
So everybody has to admit that there's some exceptions.
所以大家都要承认，这样讲法里面还是有些地方是例外的。
And what I want to say to this people who hold this theory is, give it up, because you have to admit too many exceptions.
所以这种说在这里面筑巢的这种压缩的讲法呢，你还是要放弃这里面这个例外，让你有问题不能用这个方法，行不通了。
This theory has an attraction partly because of what is described in the seventh seal.
那这个以上这种压缩筑巢的说法是有吸引力，因为它也论到7印的。
Let's read together chapter 8, verse 1.
我们一起念第8章的第1节请。羔羊揭开第7印的时候，天上极静约有2刻。
Now, this nesting theory says that this silence represents an empty spot into which the trumpets will fit.
那这个压缩的筑巢理论说，这个有一个空极静的是让这个有个位置，让这个后面的这个吹角可以进来。
It's like a blank space on the page.
那就像这个书上呢，有页上面有空白的地方。
Well, there's nothing similar with the seventh trumpet.
这个跟7号没有
But in addition, this idea that silence stands for a blank spot is not known in this kind of literature, apocalyptic literature.
那这个中间有这个极静，表示中间是空档时间，这个跟启示文学体不合。
And interpreters observe that there are other possible meanings that you can associate with this silence in heaven.
那这个天上有极静是别的解释，可以说有不同的解释意义。
Beasley Murray's commentary, he suggests that it's a silence in heaven to hear the prayers of the saints.
Beasley Murray 他的解释说，这个天上极静的时间是要来听圣徒的祷告。
And the subsequent verses in chapter 8 do talk about the prayers of the saints and as represented as incense rising to God.
第8章后面的确是说到这个圣徒祷告像那个香炉的烟上腾啊。
So Beasley Murray has some support from this later passage.
所以这个 Beasley Murray 的讲法有后面的段落是有提供似乎一些支持哈。
And he also appeals to one obscure spot in Jewish literature.
他也指出在这个犹太人文献里面有一个特别的论道的。
It says that the angels praise God at night, but in the day they're silent so that God can hear the prayers of the saints.
犹太文献说这个晚上的时候天使祷告赞美上帝，但是白天他们就休息安静，让地上的圣徒来祷告。
But it's a really obscure connection.
这是一个很怪异的这种联想啊。
Another commentator, Risi, suggests this is the silence just before the new creation dawns.
另外 Risi 这位注释家他解释，像这个当初创造的时候不是原来是有渊面黑暗安静嘛？新的创造、新造救恩的也有这一个起始的安静的时间。
Indeed, the next thing after the second coming would be the new creation.
所以这样讲法是看来的确是耶稣基督第二次来之后会带来这个新的这个创造救赎完成的实现。
I think those are interesting ideas, both of them.
我想这两种讲法都是很有趣的讲法。
But I don't think they're right.
但我不认为他们是对的。
I think the silence is the silence of standing in awe of God.
我认为这个安静是在上帝面前这个
And you can see
敬畏上帝无话可说了。
You can see both in the Bible and there's one, this is later Jewish material, not in the Bible, but there's several passages that affirm this kind of association.
那圣经上许多处，包括这个次经里也有这样记载，说到这种用法是在上帝面前敬畏在上帝面前。
Habakkuk 2:20, the Lord is in his holy temple, that all the earth keeps silence before him.
例如哈巴谷书2章20节说，唯有主耶和华在他圣殿中，全地之人应敬畏在他面前。
And you see, after the second coming, the logical thing would be a vision of God and then to stand in awe of God.
在第二次耶稣二次来之后，当然必然是因为救恩完全实现，在上帝面前存着敬畏的心，在那静默。
So it fits the context.
所以这个符合上下文。
Why don't you have a full description of the appearance of God and the appearance of the new heaven and the new earth?
为什么你没有看到这个有一个完全的叙述上帝的显现和完全叙述这个新天新地呢？
Well, God, writing through John, saves that till later in the book, where it's its appropriate place.
那在这个约翰所记载的启示录，上帝对他所是要解释到后面会有的地方来讲，对上帝的这个显现的完全，他新天新地的完全的显现。
So I think this theory of nesting does not work.
所以我认为这一个压缩筑巢式的这种理论是失败的。
It doesn't account for the fact you cycle all the way back to the incarnation in Revelation 12.
因为他没有讲到这个启示12章说到这些需要用重复循环的解释。
It's wrong in thinking that the silence is like a blank piece of paper.
8章1节呢，解释作是这个像一张书里面有一页是空白的纸，这个解释说不通。
In addition, we haven't talked about that, but there's a description of the last battle several times through the book.
那在这本启示书中，我们还没讲，就是他有好几次讲到这个最后大战在重复的发生。
Now, we won't go through all of these, but I'm listing them in the reverse order.
但我的意思是，你看这个次序呢，是从后面来讲到前面是反方向的。
And the reason is that the most obvious descriptions are later.
那明显的原因是因为这个越仔细越清楚的解释是在后
But you
面。
get small and not as detailed descriptions earlier. So once you've seen the pattern later, you can say, oh yeah, it's there earlier.
所以前面先讲的是呢，是一点一点放小亮光给你看，那当到最后最清楚说，原来前面讲都已经放出小光，已经讲到一点。
And if indeed this is the last battle, then you're clearly strongly into a recapitulation kind of cycle.
如果那是最后讲到最后大战的情况，那前面都讲的话，那表示的确是有一个循环在慢慢讲，越来越清楚。
And this kind of recapitulation also occurs elsewhere in apocalyptic literature.
那这重复循环讲到的呢，在其他的这个启示文学体的文献里面都常常出现哈。
It's complicated, but there is considerable chronological overlap between 5 different places in Daniel that's going through the history leading to the consummation.
像但以理书呢，它至少5章啊，不同地方讲到，同样讲到这个发生的历史是最后引到最终完全实现，都在重复循环。
And similarly in Ezekiel, in dealing with the restoration after exile, there's several different chapters that deal with it in several different thematic ways.
那以西结书呢，这个被掳归回，这个也同样这几章呢，重复循环讲到一样的这种主题哈。
So I think we're right to see in Revelation a use of this same procedure. It's not surprising.
我们不应该感到意外，整卷启示录不断运用这个重复循环这样的方式，这才是对的。
Revelation is a beautiful tapestry.
所以启示录的确是个非常美的这个，像你看到那个交织在一起的
with multiple dimensions and interlocking.
就像那个气球一样，针织气球，它是还有许多的层面，许多的这个丰富的含在一起的。
Logically, I should have talked about this topic first.
这逻辑上就是我应该先讲这个题目
Interpreting Revelation.
解释启示录。
I know that makes logical sense.
我知道这个逻辑上来说是有道理的。
But I wanted to expose you to the actual material in Revelation first.
但是我的方法是希望你先仔细看这个启示录本身这些客观的这些事实是什么。
And I believe particularly that the theme of spiritual war and counterfeiting helps us to see what's going on when different interpreters disagree with one another.
我先讲到这个属于属灵征战这个属灵假冒，这个呢就可以帮助我们。你看不同注释家他怎么看待这个假冒的解释，会让我们明白他怎么解释这个启示录这本书了。
So let's think about this whole area of how do we interpret the book.
所以让我们先来思想，我们应该如何来解释这卷启示录。
I wish we had time to just discuss things. What do you suppose are the dangers and the rewards as we consider this book?
我盼望我们有时间能够来讨论，你认为我们来解释读这本启示录有什么危险，有什么赏赐结果，会得到什么？
Many of you have seen in the church extreme responses.
我想你们许多看到教会里有些人是很极端的来对这个启示录解释的。
I know people who are afraid of the book of Revelation.
我知道有不少人害怕启示录这本书，
They're Christian people,
这是讲基督徒，
but they don't want to look at it. It's frightening to them.
但他们不想去读启示录，他们觉得很可怕，
Or they're convinced that they can't understand it.
他们被人家劝服说你不可能都明白这本书吧，还是不要读了。
There are other people who have an unhealthy kind of interest in it.
另外有些人怀着不健康的兴趣和动机来看启示录。
Because I teach the book of Revelation in Westminster Seminary, over the years I have received manuscripts.
我多年在教启示录在西敏神学院，我读到很多我看到很多的这个手稿
And some of them are people who are convinced that they and they alone understand the book.
有些人宣称只有他们独家才懂启示录，别人都不懂了。
And they pore over it and they puzzle it out.
他们把它这个拿过来，把它搞得像那个神秘的拼图似的，让你很大惑不解。
And now, admittedly, it is a challenging book.
当然，我们立刻承认这本书是具有挑战性的书卷。
Sweet's commentary talks about the fact I don't have the quote here. I'm using a short version of my notes.
另外一个Sweet 这个启示录这个注释者，他这样讲到。
But he says basically many people have undertaken to puzzle out the book, but they disagree with one another.
那么他说，许多人呢把启示录是本这个猜谜式的这个拼图啊，所以呢，每个人就这样把它拆开来分。
And that shows the challenge and the difficulty.
这也说明这个挑战性和困难度。
And Proverbs 14:15 tells us to be patient in dealing with such things.
箴言14章15节说，我们要小心来面对这样的难解的困难的。
You could read it together. Proverbs 14:15.
我们请翻到箴言14章15节翻到我们请大家翻到我们一起来念14章15节请。
There are people, Christian people, who believe the first thing that a teacher tells them about the book of Revelation.
那有些人相信他们老师跟他讲论到启示录第一句话，他们就相信了。
And you will meet people in the church for which this will be a challenge for you.
在教会里碰到这样的人，对你来说是个挑战。
Because they're shocked that anyone would disagree with their beloved teacher.
那他们会发现，任何人讲如果和他们所爱的老师讲的那第一句话不一样的话，他们觉得很惊讶。
But in fact, over the centuries, people have disagreed over the book of Revelation.
事实上呢，这个历史历代以来，大家对启示录有很多不同看法，所以先入为主的观念影响很大。
And so it is wise to give thought and not just to seize the first explanation that makes sense.
所以通达人步步谨慎，不是因为一听到第一个说法就觉得很好，就先入为主了。
And that applies to my teaching too.
这也对我所教导的也是一样。
I'm a human being like you.
我也像你一样，只是个人。
And I'm reading the same book you're reading.
我读的书和你读的这个是一样的书。
So we are all called on by God to humble ourselves and to listen carefully to what other people have said, but then to ask God to help us understand.
所以我们蒙上帝呼召来读启示录，来读这些书卷，我们要谦卑，听到别人讲的，我们好好靠上帝的恩典来分辨、来思想。
But positive, so there are dangers with this book.
所以这卷书看起来读起来是有危险，但是呢也有正面的。
But there are positive reasons, I think, for being encouraged by it.
那但是我相信还是有正面的原因来鼓励我们来读启示录。
The first is obvious. It is inspired scripture.
第一个很明显的，启示录是上帝圣灵默示的话语，圣经。
And God says all of scripture is inspired by God and is profitable.
圣经上神说，圣经都是神所默示的，所以都是有意义的。
So God has a purpose for this book for us.
所以神赐下这本书启示录，对我们是有他的目的的。
God knew from the beginning of time the difficulties and struggles that people would have.
神早就知道，在创世以前他就知道人们读启示录这本书会有遭遇困难的。
And yet he caused the book to be written.
那他还是这个叫约翰写下启示录。
And so we should believe, even though we do not yet see, right, that this book is written for profit.
所以我们要深信啊，这本书上帝赐给我们启示录是让我们得到造就有益的。
I already made that point. Also, when you begin to read the book, look at what it says, Revelation 1:1.
而且当你这样深信之后，你开始来读启示录第1章第1节的时候
，But yeah, let's read the first verse together.
好，我们请一起来念第1章第1节，请。耶稣基督的启示，就是神赐给他，叫他将必要快成的事指示他的众仆人，他就差遣使者晓谕他的仆人约翰。
Who's the book written to?
那这本书是写给谁的？
It's written to his servants.
这本书是写给他的仆人。
It's not just the prophecy experts.
这不只是写给这个解释预言的专家啊。
It's not the PhDs.
这不是写给博士。
If you are a servant of Christ, this book is for you.
如果你是耶稣基督仆人，这本书是为你写的。
And in the third verse, it has an explicit blessing for the person who reads it. Let's read verse 3.
第3节说到读这本书的人特别的福气，我们一起来念第3节，请。念这书上预言的和那些听见又遵守其中所记载的，都是有福的，因为日期近了。
The English version talks about blessed is the one who reads aloud. The aloud meaning the picture is public reading because not everybody would be able to read for himself.
Okay. 所以这个原文包括英文圣经有中文没有翻出来，就是说有福人是谁？那些这个在公开场大声诵读听见的而遵行的有。换句话说，这个书是应该在教会里面公开去讲解诵读的，因为有些人可能自己没办法读懂。
But even if people didn't read for themselves, they were blessed by hearing.
即使他们自己没有去读懂，但是呢，他没有去读，但他听到这个有宣读出来，大声宣读的，他们也是有福的。
As far as I can see, this is the only book of the Bible that has an explicit blessing just for reading it.
那这是我所知道圣经唯一的一卷书是清楚说到，你去读它，你是有福的这个书。
So God is giving extra encouragement to people who may be fearful.
所以换句话说，神特别给这些怕读启示录的人说，你好好读它是有福的。
In addition, this book is relevant for our time.
同时呢，这本书对今天的我们是非常适切的。
For several reasons.
有一些这样的原因。
It is always has spoken to people under situations of persecution.
这本书一直是向那些在苦难中被逼迫的这个人们说话。
It was written in a time of persecution.
因为它是在被逼迫的时候写成的。
And whatever people are taught mistakenly about the book, when they get in persecution, the Holy Spirit teaches them, they see its relevance.
所以这个虽然人们常会读错，但是呢，当他遭受苦难的时候，圣灵引导圣徒去从这个经历苦难里来读这本书时，他们就清楚看见这本书讲什么。
And in many parts of the world today, there is serious Christian persecution.
那在今天世界各地的确是有非常严重的这个基督徒遭到逼迫的这种状况。
Second is that dispensationalism needs a positive answer.
第二就是说，时代论者他们需要一个正面的答案。
Dispensationalism is widespread among Christian believers who, genuinely believe the Word of God.
那这个时代论在这些真心相信圣经上帝话的这些信徒当中是很流行的。
I believe dispensationalism has some fundamental errors in it.
那我相信时代论者本身有些基本上的这个错误。
But the best response to it is not just to attack the errors.
但是最好的回应方式不是只是去攻击指出他的错误。
It's to present a positive understanding of the Bible that can be stronger and better than dispensationalism.
而是直接指出圣经里面这些积极正面教导是比这个时代论的错误来说更重要、更积极的，这个是以善胜恶的方式。
And for many dispensationalists, Revelation is their favorite book.
那对许多时代论者说，启示录他们是最爱的书。
And Reformed people have sometimes stayed away from teaching on the book.
那改革宗人有的时候却远离启示录，不敢去教。
And maybe that's partly because they don't want to get into all the things that the dispensationalists say.
也许是改革宗人不想这个进到这个和时代论里面这些讲的东西有争论的地方。
But if Reformed people never teach about Revelation, then they'll leave it. They're leaving it to the dispensationalists.
如果改革宗人不好好教启示录的话，那就得让这个时代论者去读脉读断去教这个启示录了。
But I think actually, when you understand the book of Revelation, it is in tension with dispensationalism.
你仔细读启示录的话，你会发现这个时代论者讲的是有争论的。
It's actually, though they regard it as a strong point, it's actually a weak point in their approach.
那么事实上呢，时代论者认为他们最强点，其实上是最弱的地方。